The wind whistles softly, leaves rustle with each passing gust, and somewhere in the distance, an eerie owl hoots. A low growl echoes through the trees, a sound that doesn't belong. Can you feel it? The weight of the darkness, thick in the air, almost suffocating. You're not alone. You never were. Welcome to the forest, where danger lurks, where the unknown waits for the unwary to wander too far. The chill in your bones, the whispers just beyond your hearing, all signs that something is watching you. Are you ready to hear the stories of the forgotten places where no one dares to go? Where souls have vanished without a trace? Stay with me because today, we are diving into 3 true stories that will leave you questioning every step you take when you walk into the woods. Before we begin, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you're brave enough to continue, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell, so you never miss another story that will send chills down your spine. Now imagine this. Hidden deep within the shadows of forests, there are places where even the boldest dare not tread. These forests hold more than just trees. They hide unsolved mysteries, paranormal beings, and ancient legends that even the bravest would rather avoid. These are places where the laws of nature seem to break down, where something, or someone, seems to be waiting. And today, we're going to uncover the horrors that lie beneath the canopy. Let's get started, shall we? The first story. Aokigahara Forest, Japan, a place where even the most determined never come back the same. It's known as the Suicide Forest, but there's so much more to it than that. Many have entered, but far fewer have returned, and those who did, their minds were never the same. Next up, Hoya Forest in Romania. You've probably heard the rumors, strange lights, unnatural forces, and things that shouldn't be possible. What if I told you it's all true? This is a forest where reality bends, where supernatural forces are more than just tales to frighten children. It's a place that thrives on fear, and it's waiting for you to come too close. And the last one, a forest so chilling, so deeply entrenched in legend, that it has earned a place in the nightmares of those who dare to venture near it. The Wendigo Forest, deep in the heart of Canada. A forest where creatures of the dark aren't just myths, they're real. And they're waiting for their next victim. Are you ready for this? Hold tight, because these stories are going to take you to the very edge of fear. Don't blink, you won't want to miss a second. At the foot of Mount Fuji lies Aokigahara, a forest so dense and silent that it seems to swallow all sound. Known as the Suicide Forest, this place is far from ordinary. The trees stand tall, their branches twisted in eerie formations, casting shadows that seem to stretch unnaturally. Aokigahara has become infamous for its association with tragedy, a place where people go, often never to return. Locals call it the Sea of Trees, but there is a deeper, darker meaning to the name. The forest is more than just a natural wonder. It is a place where something sinister resides. While its beauty may lure some to explore, for others, it's a place of final escape. Many enter Aokigahara looking for peace, but few make it back. In this forest, there's a lingering presence, an energy that seems to pull people into its depths, away from the world outside. Some say the forest is haunted by spirits, those who met untimely ends and never left. The thick trees obscure the sky, casting the forest in an unsettling, perpetual twilight. It's easy to see why people are drawn to this place, but it's also easy to understand why they rarely leave. Aokigahara is no ordinary forest. There's something unnatural about it, something terrifying. The stories, the whispers, the sightings. Once you step inside, it's as though you're no longer alone. And as for those who enter seeking answers or escape, they may find much more than they bargained for. In 2009, Takahiro, a 23-year-old man, ventured into the forest in search of peace. He had been struggling with personal demons, and Aokigahara seemed like the answer. His journey, however, would end far from what he had expected. Friends and family reported that Takahiro had been deeply affected by the stories of Aokigahara. They said he was hoping to find answers to life's dark questions. And so, without hesitation, he stepped into the forest. But Takahiro's disappearance wasn't the result of a simple choice. It became a mystery that would haunt those who knew him. Witnesses reported strange occurrences as he entered the forest. Some said they heard him talking to himself, whispering things that couldn't quite be understood. Others claimed that, as he ventured deeper, he started seeing shadows, figures that moved just out of sight. It was only when Takahiro started hearing voices calling his name that the fear really began to set in. He felt as if something was watching him, following his every move. Desperate for help, Takahiro tried to call out, but it was too late. His voice disappeared into the heavy air. Hours later he was gone, and there was no trace of where he had gone. The search for Takahiro turned up nothing, and his body was never found. What makes this even more disturbing are the chilling recordings made by other tourists who ventured into Aokigahara. They captured strange sounds, whispers on the wind, footsteps that weren't their own, and voices calling from the darkness. The cameras and phones of those who entered the forest often glitch out, malfunctioning just as they get too close to something they can't explain. These eerie details add to the growing mystery of Aokigahara. It's as though the forest itself conspires to keep its secrets. There's a darkness in Aokigahara that words can barely capture. It's a place where time seems to bend, and reality is warped. Those who have tried to follow in Takahiro's footsteps have experienced things that they cannot explain, only to retreat before it's too late. One can only wonder what happens to those who disappear without a trace. What is it about Aokigahara that draws people to it, and why does it refuse to let them leave? The mysteries of this place are endless, and some believe that the forest itself is alive, feeding on the souls of those who enter. The spirits that haunt it aren't just legends, they are a real and tangible presence. Aokigahara stands as a haunting reminder of the fragility of the human mind. It is a place where the living become lost, wandering in search of something they'll never find, swallowed by the very forest they sought solace in. Every time someone steps into the darkness, a piece of them is left behind, trapped by the shadows that lurk just beyond the trees. The question that lingers is this: is Aokigahara truly haunted, or does it feed off the despair of those who enter, using their fear to claim them as its own? The answers may never be clear, but one thing is certain: no one who enters this forest ever leaves the same. Some don't leave at all. Hoya Forest, a place where the trees grow in unnatural angles, their branches twisting and curling as if they are trying to escape the ground itself. The forest is dense, dark, and silent, the kind of silence that makes you uneasy, like the whole place is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. If you walk through Hoya, it doesn't take long to realize that something is off. The atmosphere here is thick, almost as if the very air around you is charged with something you can't see, but you can feel. It's as if the land itself is alive, watching and waiting. It's no wonder this forest is often referred to as Romania's Bermuda Triangle. Many who have ventured into Hoya report strange feelings, like being watched, a constant sense of dread, as if the trees themselves are closing in around them. The air is heavy with an unspoken tension, as though something is just out of sight, lingering in the shadows. But what exactly is this presence? What waits just beyond the tree line? For years, Hoya Forest has been the subject of paranormal research and dark folklore. The forest's most notable feature is the way the trees grow in bizarre, almost impossible angles. But it's not just the trees that are unsettling. There's something more to this place, something that can't be explained. Radu, a seasoned paranormal investigator, ventured into Hoya with his team, determined to capture evidence of the strange phenomena that people had been talking about for decades. Armed with cameras, they set out to explore the forest. But what they discovered was far more disturbing than they ever expected. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they began to capture images of figures moving in the distance. Shadowy figures that appeared to watch them from the corners of their eyes, only to vanish when they turned to look directly at them. Radu captured strange distortions in the photos, areas where the trees themselves seemed to warp and twist. The air grew thicker, colder, and every step forward felt heavier, as if they were being drawn deeper into something they couldn't escape. The team reported hearing disembodied voices in the wind, whispers that couldn't be explained, and the overwhelming feeling that they weren't alone. Some members claimed to have felt something brush against them, something that left a cold, unsettling trace behind. But the true horror of Hoya came to light in 2007, when a group of tourists entered the forest, never to be seen again. They had been told about the eerie reputation of Hoya, but they were undeterred. What they didn't know was that the forest had no intention of letting them leave. Days later, their bodies were found deep within the woods, but something was terribly wrong. The bodies themselves showed no signs of harm, but the scene surrounding them was completely inexplicable. Their cameras, which they had used to document their journey, were found frozen. The footage they had captured was locked, stuck in an unexplainable loop. No one could understand why. There were no signs of struggle, no indication of what had happened to them. It was as if they had simply vanished from the world, only to return without any clear reason. The chilling realization set in. The forest had taken them, and it wasn't ready to give them up. Beyond this terrifying incident, there are countless other stories of people experiencing the inexplicable in Hoya. Tourists have reported seeing shadows darting between the trees, figures that move with unnatural speed, only to disappear when they try to approach. Some have heard footsteps following them, getting closer and closer until they break into a run, but no one is ever there when they turn around. Others have claimed to have seen strange creatures, ghastly, ghostly beings that lurk just beyond their sight, only to vanish when they focus their attention on them. The wind in Hoya is another unsettling feature. It never stops, a constant, howling presence that echoes through the trees, carrying with it a strange sense of unease. The wind whispers through the forest, almost as if it's speaking, carrying with it words that can't be understood, but can be felt. It's a reminder that Hoya is not just a forest, it's something more. It's as if the entire place is alive, watching, judging, and perhaps even playing with those who dare to venture inside. The mystery of Hoya Forest remains unsolved, and the more people search for answers, the deeper the questions seem to go. Some say the forest is haunted by the souls of the lost, trapped between worlds, never able to find peace. Others believe that Hoya is a doorway, a portal to another realm, one that pulls people in and never lets them go. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The feeling of being watched, followed, and hunted within the forest is real. Every step you take, every breath you draw in the depths of Hoya, feels like a step closer to something darker, something ancient. And no matter how many people enter the forest in search of answers, the forest remains silent, guarding its secrets. The ghosts of Hoya are not stories, they are real, and they are waiting for their next visitor. You may leave with your body intact, but you will never leave the same. Something will always remain with you, and the forest, like the shadows within it, will continue to watch, waiting for the next soul to wander in. Imagine walking through a thick forest blanketed in snow. The wind is harsh, cutting through your clothes like 1,000 sharp knives. Every step you take is accompanied by the crunch of snow beneath your boots, a constant reminder of the isolation you're in. But then, you hear something distant but distinct. It's not the wind. It's something else. A soft rustling, followed by a pause, then another sound, closer this time. Something is following you. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up as you realize you're not alone. Welcome to the Wendigo Forest, a place where few dare to enter, and even fewer return from. This isn't just any forest. This is the home of the Wendigo, a creature from ancient lore, an entity that has haunted the woods of northern Canada for centuries. The Wendigo is not a mere animal. It's a supernatural predator, always lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Those who enter the Wendigo's domain are never safe. The forest whispers, the wind howls, and the creature itself, impossible to escape, is always just out of sight. In 1982, a group of hunters entered the woods of Ontario, eager to explore the vast wilderness. They were experienced outdoorsmen, used to the harshest of conditions. But they never returned. A search party was dispatched, and what they found was beyond comprehension. The hunters' bodies were discovered deep in the forest, but they were far from what anyone expected. The bodies were mangled, unrecognizable, and there were signs that they had been eaten, human flesh. But the strange part wasn't the condition of the bodies. It was the absence of any clear explanation. There were no obvious animal tracks around the bodies, no signs of struggle with another human. It was as if something had stalked them, something that no one could explain. The authorities were baffled, but the locals whispered about the Wendigo. They said that the Wendigo doesn't just kill, it consumes the soul, turning the hunter into the hunted. A deadly predator that is always in search of its next victim, feeding off the terror and fear of those it stalks. Some of the survivors from that hunting trip came back, but they weren't the same. They were hollow-eyed, pale, and shaken to their core. They spoke of sounds in the night, footsteps in the snow, the cracking of branches in the distance, whispers that echoed through the trees. One survivor, barely able to speak, claimed that they had heard something following them in the dark, getting closer with each passing moment. The hunters tried to outrun the sound, but it was always behind them, lurking in the shadows. It wasn't until they finally made it out of the forest that they realized something even more terrifying. The creature that had stalked them had never been seen. No tracks. No physical evidence. Only the feeling of being hunted. Those who stayed behind couldn't explain the horrific scene they left behind, and the authorities were left with no answers. The only thing left was the fear that clung to the survivors, a fear that no one could shake. Some say the Wendigo had already claimed the rest. The stories of the Wendigo are passed down through generations, often told in hushed voices around campfires or in dark corners of the town. The creature is said to be immortal, its hunger for human flesh never satisfied. But it's not just its physical form that makes it terrifying. The Wendigo is said to have the power to manipulate the minds of those who enter its domain, whispering into their ears, filling them with paranoia and fear. The deeper you go into the forest, the more you become consumed by the Wendigo's presence. You lose yourself in the darkness, and the creature knows your every move before you make it. It's as if the forest itself becomes a part of it, bending and twisting to the Wendigo's will. The Wendigo is not just an animal. It is the very embodiment of the forest's darkest power, and once it has you in its sights, you are never truly free. There is no escape from the Wendigo. No matter how fast you run, no matter how far you go, it will always be waiting for you. The forest is its kingdom, and within its shadow, no one is safe. Every crackling twig, every gust of wind, every whisper in the trees serves as a reminder that the Wendigo is always watching. And for those who venture too far into its depths, they may never return. If you hear the wind howling through the trees, be careful. It could be the Wendigo calling. And once you hear that call, it's already too late. You're already its prey. The terrifying truth about the Wendigo is that it represents something more than just a monster in the woods. It's the embodiment of isolation, of being lost in a world where the rules don't apply. In the remote forests of Canada, where the snow covers everything in a thick blanket of white, it's easy to feel like you're the only one out there. But you're not alone. The Wendigo is always out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. It is the perfect predator, silent, unseen, but always just behind you. So, the next time you find yourself in the snow-covered forests of Canada, remember this. The Wendigo is always watching, always waiting for you to wander too far into the dark. Because once you do, you may never return.